The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Breaking humanity, one soul at a time. This is The World You Don't Know radio show with your host, Nick O'Connell.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're very welcome along to this week's edition of The World You Don't Know, myself, Mick O'Connell. And I do have a guest coming on now in a few minutes. I've just been talking to him there on the phone a few minutes ago. I'm going to be talking to Mr. William James McGuire, who is the President of the Irish Republican Brotherhood. And we're going to be talking about Brexit and what it means for Ireland, namely the Sovereign Republic of Ireland. And this is a complicated issue, it really is. And it's something that's been on my mind quite a long time since Brexit was announced. Now, you've heard me on my show many, many times talking about the fact that Ireland never actually gained its independence, although we were taught in school that we did, but we didn't. I mean, for example, we don't celebrate our Independence Day, not on a national level anyway. Now, William McGuire celebrates Ireland's Independence Day on the 21st of January every year by performing a ceremony in the Mansion House called the Turning of the Sovereign Seal. And it's a very significant ceremony which is attended by the Lord Mayor. It's supposed to be attended, I think, by the Taoiseach as well, and the Chief Justice of the Court, but neither of them turn up for a very, very good reason. Anyway, this ceremony, as I said, has been going on for a very, very long time. And yet, I only discovered it 6-7 years ago maybe, and I was shocked to discover why the ceremony was taking place and the reasons that it was taking place. Now, Billy McGuire holds in trust for the Irish people our sovereignty. Now, what does that mean? Well, Ireland was, it isn't anymore, we're under the British Crown, but Ireland was, for a short period of time, a sovereign independent nation for a very short period of time between 1918 and 1922. And then we had the Oireachtas foisted upon us under threat of immediate war by the British against the Irish people if Michael Collins didn't accept what was in the treaty. And of course we know history tells us that they accepted what was in the treaty. Michael Collins was assassinated shortly thereafter, so he never lived to tell the tale about what really went on and who the main players were and stuff like that. But this country's been lied to ever since. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a song, and while the song is playing I'm going to get Billy on. So this is actually quite... No, I didn't put the song up. My mate in the studio, Dave, actually put this up. And funny enough, the song he's put up is If You Tolerate This, Your Children Will Be Next. And compared to what we're going to be talking about tonight, this is quite an apt song. So I'm going to play this song, and it's a brilliant song. Anyway, here's the Manic Street Preachers, and If You Tolerate This, Your Children Will Be Next. I'll be back to you now in a couple of minutes, folks, with Billy McGuire. Talk to you very shortly. Now, folks, I'm going to cut that song short because I do have Billy waiting in the wings. I have been speaking to him there just on the phone a couple of seconds ago, and hopefully this works. Now, I've had a few problems in the past in relation to the phone, so hopefully I won't suffer the same fate tonight. Now, please God willing, I won't. Anyway, I'm going to try and go to Billy now, so just bear with me, folks, and let's see what happens. Good evening, Billy.
Good evening, Mick.
Aha, work first time.
Good evening to your listeners. Mick, if you just put it up a small bit louder, could you?
Let me see, Billy. I'll turn my own thing up there. Can you hear me a bit better now?
That's better now, that's better.
Right, you're not, no bother, Billy. I just have to mess around with the levels here to make sure yeah, that seems okay, Billy. Now, good evening, Billy. You're the President of the Irish Republican Brotherhood. And
Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood.
Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood.
Sister organisations, as you know.
Yep.
One was founded for America and the other for here. And they founded the state, the Sovereign Republic of Ireland, the Sovereign Dáil Government, the Sovereign Dáil Courts, and the War of Independence as a defence force.
Right. Now, listen, Billy, we're on tonight to talk about Brexit and the UK specifically. Now, I have said this to my listeners on many an occasion that Ireland never actually received its independence. Only for a short period of time did the Dáil sit in this country, and it's been the Oireachtas ever since. And we've been getting lied to left, right and centre, particularly through the education system and our media. Now, my question, and I've been asking this question a long time, what does it actually mean for Ireland if Britain want out of the European Union, considering...
Well, it's very serious for us because, as you know, we didn't get our independence. We were on the 21st of January, by the will of all the people of the 32 counties of Ireland. They gave the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood the mandate to found the state, the Sovereign Republic of Ireland, to found the Sovereign Dáil Government and the Sovereign Dáil Courts and the War of Independence as a defence force. That's the mandate we still hold today. You know, and on the 20th, 19, it'll be our 100th anniversary. And the 1916 Rising, that's Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood. And that tricolour flag and that we put up in the GPO. That's Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood's tricolour flag. And the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann, 12 strings, that's all Irish. They're all Irish and Fenian Rub. So we did achieve our sovereignty. But the tragedy of it was that we were betrayed very quickly after the 21st of January 1919 by, I have to say, our own politicians as well. You know, they imposed, on the 6th of December 19, we were the sovereign, all the institutions of the state were up and running on the 21st of January 1919. And we have to go back to that to find out. And, if you remember I said to you about that book, and it's a marvellous, there's 4 great books that everybody should read, and one is Chris Fogarty's books on the Holocaust, and our own Tom McGuire's book, Sovereign Republic of Éire, and Diarmuid Lynch's book. Diarmuid Lynch is the man who took down the tricolour flag from the GPO and was brought up under those tunnels to Vaughan's Hotel. It was kept there and it was ratified on the 21st of January 1919, and it's our tricolour flag. And you will see me, when we read our proclamation, which is an Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood proclamation, you'll see me holding that we still owned that, and we keep it on behalf of the sovereign citizens and the sovereign Republic of Éire, and we keep it for the sovereign Dáil Éireann government. But that book, Money for Ireland, Finance, Diplomacy, Politics, and the First Dáil Éireann Loans, 1919 to 1936, by Francis M. Carter. And just give you a small brief, I spoke to him actually on the phone there not so long ago, and he's a Canadian professor. He's 79 now, and a very brilliant man, and he did a wonderful work. His mother was Irish, she told me, and he was sent to Trinity College, and that's his interest. But if you just read the preface, I'll only read a small piece of it.
Yeah, do, Billy, do.
It puts it in context for people to understand what happened. And this is the money trail. Everybody should follow the money trail, because all we're told is a pack of lies, propaganda lies and deception. And this is Kathleen Burke in her, the light isn't great here, in her study of the American financing of the British war effort from 1914 to 1918, subtitled her book, Sinews of War. She ascertained that the Anglo-American finances were the muscle power that made the Allied victory in the Great War possible. This book is about the sinews of war in Ireland, the sources of financial muscle power during the Irish War of Independence and the Civil War, and even the next decade. The internal and external loans in Ireland and in the United States raised the money to provide Dáil Éireann with the funds to resist British authority and to create the institutions and the working government. The money from the sale of bonds made possible the functioning of the Dáil government from 1919 to 1921. This part of history of the Irish struggle for self-government, raising the money in Ireland and in the United States, and the financing of the Dáil government operations has been largely untold. And that's absolutely correct, and that's what this book is about. And you'll see where all that, I said all the institutions on the 21st of January were up and running. Michael Collins, he eventually was Minister for Finance. On the 6th of December 1921, he was only Provisional Minister of Finance. And what happened, the Sovereign Republic of Éire, the Sovereign Dáil Éireann government and the Sovereign Dáil Éireann courts, all the money was, you could say robbed, and that's what it was. That was collected worldwide. You're talking about tens of millions that was provided all over the world, and especially in America. And what's interesting in this book is that, money to set all these institutions up. Without money you can't do anything, as you know. And there was plenty of money there. But the money, very soon, on 1919, and you'll see it from that book, you follow the money, the provisional free state under the Crown of England, and De Valera was sent to America, and he split. Friends of Irish Freedom was an institution set up by the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood to collect that money. James McGuire, he was chairman of that organisation, and he collected the money in America. And the courts ruled in America that that money could not be used for the setting up of the Free State Provisional Government that was imposed by Britain on the 6th of December 1921 as a British apartheid system for the 26 and 6 counties of Ireland as an Orange Free State. That money was used by De Valera to set up Fianna Fáil and to set up the Irish press. That money was not given for that purpose. And Michael Collins used it to set up on the 6th of December 1921. He and the Free State government, they went down and bought the lease from the Royal Dublin Society from Leinster House. That's where the Royal Dublin Society had their show, and they moved out to Ballsbridge. And Sinn Féin, who was the political wing of the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, they wouldn't take their seats in Leinster House because the Duke of Leinster was the agent for the Crown of England. And what you were doing was you were only changing from one, giving your taxes and that. We don't even still today, we're not told the truth about where that money is going to, where your taxes are going to. And Britain hadn't any money on the 6th of December 1921. All that money that was collected worldwide, and they set up the Free State judges here, who gave that money to the Free State government, a provisional government, as I said, imposed by King George V. And he usurped the sovereignty of the people and of Dáil Éireann, and he declared Dáil Éireann to be an illegal assembly. So I don't know how he could do what the so-called treaty, which never existed. And he annexed the 6 counties of Ireland. That money was used to pay for the setting up of those 6 counties of Ireland, and is still being used. That money should be for our own people and setting up our own institutions. And people, if you follow the money trail in that, and you'll see in America where Michael Collins, he took on the money that was there, the guarantee funds, and you'll see the 3 court cases there, and you'll see where the 7 judges of the Supreme Court ruled that money had to go back in America to those people who donated the money. And that money is still outstanding. All that money is the property of the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, not Fianna Fáil or the Irish press or Cumann Gael, who set up Fine Gael, and De Valera, who set up Fianna Fáil outfit. It was never given for that purpose. And that's the whole purpose that has been airbrushed out. And the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, as you know, we've been airbrushed out of history. That's our proclamation, that's our tricolor flag, and we keep all that in trust for the sovereign citizens and for the sovereign Republic of Éire and for the sovereign Dáil Éireann government. That's what we keep it for, and the sovereign Dáil Éireann courts.
Now, Billy, I read Tom McGraw's book, and it was a very interesting read, now, and I need to read it again because I always believe that if you're reading a book, you need to read it once to see what it's about. You need to read it a second time to understand what's in the book, and then you need to read it a third time to actually get what he's talking about in the book. So I have a couple of more reads to do. But one thing I did notice was, one of the things he mentioned in it was that when the British pulled out of Ireland, allegedly back in 1921-22, they left behind anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000 of their agents.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, would he have been talking about the civil service of the day?
He would, of course. Sure,
right.
Look, it's never really changed over. That's what people are talking about our independence. We were independent on the 21st of January. And I have to say, when we left Britain under the threat of immediate and terrible war, and look what happened on the 21st of January 1919, and look at the savagery and brutality that Britain imposed. They sent in the Crown forces here. They sent in the Black and Tans. They destroyed everything. They destroyed our people, and they're still doing it. And the point of the whole issue is they want now to leave Britain, wants to leave the European Union, and they want royal treatment. They want all these great agreements. We didn't get any of that from Britain when we left on the 21st of January 1919, by the will of all the people and the wishes of all the people of the 32 county election of 1918 from GHQ Vaughan's Hotel. And this thing, you see, the government, we did really achieve our independence. But without all that money, we were deprived of that money that was collected all over the world, tens of millions, and that money was used for the purpose of setting up the Free State.
And you're talking about tens of millions back in 1919.
1919, I'm talking about tens of millions.
So you're talking about billions in today's money.
You're talking about billions. We had plenty of money, and the money was there, and that money was all it was used for. But it wasn't. That money was never given for that. It was given for the setting up of the Sovereign Republic of Eire, and that's what Britain did. And De Valera, he split the Friends of Irish Freedom in two in America, and he set up the ARIR as trying to collect the money, getting the money from them. They split instead of all uniting together. No, there was a whole split, and to set up the Free State. That's what that money ended up at, setting up the Free State of the 26 and 6 counties of Ireland as an Orange Free State and a provisional government.
Which is still an apartheid state. Billy, listen, I need to go to an ad break, so do you mind hanging on the wings there for a couple of minutes?
No.
That'd be great. Folks, we'll be back in 10 minutes with Billy McGuire. Talk to you very shortly.
You're listening to Liffey Sound on 96.4 FM.
Now, folks, you're very welcome back. The text line is 087 7138. That's 087 7138 if you have any comments or anything you want to send in. And remember, the Facebook page for the show is The World You Don't Know on Facebook. The World You Don't Know radio show. If you just type that into Facebook, you'll find the page. Like it, share it, send it about, whatever. Now, I was told that we got a text message in saying that Billy's voice is a bit low. I'm not sure if it is, because I can hear him quite fine. I'm not sure about you, the listener, but I will turn it up a small bit, but I can't turn it up too much because it interferes with the quality, I suppose, of the call. Anyway, I'll go back to Billy. Billy, you're still with me, yeah?
I am, yes.
That's great. Now, some of the listeners were saying they can't hear you, so I'm just going to turn you up a small little bit, Billy, and hopefully they can. Billy, now, I want to talk about Brexit. Now, I've heard you before talk about Charles de Gaulle saying that only a sovereign nation can sit at the European Union table, right? And that Britain had to use our sovereignty in order to get themselves in there. Now, if that's the case, and we're still under the British rule via the Oireachtas, and that seems to be the case as well, even though some people out there might deny that, but I mean, I firmly believe we still are. And as you do yourself, Billy, what does that mean for Ireland if Britain want out of the European Union? Does that mean we're out of the European Union? And what's going to happen?
On the 16th of March of this year, Queen Elizabeth, she gave royal assent for Article 50 of Brexit to be triggered. She didn't give sovereignty because she doesn't have sovereignty. And that goes back to 1155 for Adrian IV when the only English Pope gave it to Henry II to build his empire. And that's why you see our sovereign seal up in the coat of arms of the Crown of England since then. They don't have sovereignty. They have a royal courts of justice, they have a crown force, and they have but anyway, on the 29th of March, her Prime Minister, Theresa May, she triggered Article 50. And you see that letter she sent to the European Union to Donald Tusk. Under the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, she removed the United Kingdom, England, Scotland and Ireland from the European Union. That's the only way she could do it. So she is actually, technically, she has taken us out of the European Union.
So how come our politicians are not saying anything about this, Billy?
No, you don't hear politicians because all you hear is propaganda, lies and deception. They go in and do you see that our tricolour flag in Europe? I mean, that tricolour flag was put up in 1916 by the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood on the GPO and taken down by Dermot Lynch and brought up under those tunnels. And, we've spoken about that before, about when it came here, and Thomas Francis Meagher, and it came with the orange nearest to the pole, but on the 21st of January 1919, it was ratified, in Vaughan's Hotel and in the Mansion House, and and that's in Europe, but they just take that. A provisional government doesn't have the right to use that tricolour flag because they're under the Crown of England. And they're still under the Crown of England. And they don't have the right to use the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann. Dáil Éireann has never sat in Leinster House, and they're the facts. And they're going on, and you read that book very clearly, and you'll see where they talk about the sovereign government, which we're talking about, that's what we are, and the 1916 proclamation and the sovereign constitution are the foundation documents of the state, and it's democratically elected by the will of all the people of the 32 counties. That's the mandate we have. And what they're talking about is what was imposed by King George V on the 6th of December 1921, and they can't tell you the truth, and they're only provisional government. And in that book, it makes it quite clear that the Free State comes from a different source, the Crown of England. You know, what could be clearer than that? What could be clearer than those 7 judges in America saying that that money that was donated by everybody in America and all over the world cannot be used for any other purposes, only what it was donated for. And it was donated for the Sovereign Republic of Eire, the Sovereign Dáil government, the Sovereign Dáil courts, and the War of Independence as a defence force. And you can't change that. And it was used illegally and fraudulently by the Free State government to set up the Free State and to set up the 6 counties of Ireland. And by Britain, because Britain on the 6th of December 1921, they were, just after the war, they had no money. And that's what they did. And people should realise what they did, and they should realise the facts of what happened. And everybody tried to keep it sovereign Dáil going. And as you know, my family have kept it going for 98 years. And I'm doing it 54 years. As you've been there, and you read the proclamation at the GPO.
I did.
And we stand outside the Mansion House. And as you know, the Leinster House has, for the first time in 96 years, have voted unanimously that our Independence Day will be the 21st of January. Because you have to have a sovereign government. We cannot pretend. And we cannot, if they don't recognise, did you see any member of the so-called provisional government in the Mansion House on the 21st of January?
No.
Nobody recognises it. Nobody recognises the sovereign government. And General de Gaulle, as you know, and you spoke about him there, he wouldn't allow a provisional government under the Crown of England to sit in the European Parliament, nor can we sit in the European Parliament. And until they recognise, all we want is our sovereign Dáil government, by the will of all the people of the 32 counties of Ireland, to sit in the European Parliament. It's as a legal, valid and bona fide government, and use our tricolour flag and use our sovereign seal, and that's what they did. That's all. We keep that in trust for the sovereign citizens and the Sovereign Republic of Eire and the Sovereign Dáil and the Dáil Court. But it's a sham what's going on at the moment. And I don't see how you're going to... We have a sovereign, legitimate government. And that's what we want. Democratically elected by the will of all the people of the 32 counties. And you're talking about borders. There will be no border. And I cannot see how Europe can impose what King George V imposed on the 6th of December 1921 here, a British apartheid system for the 26 and 6 counties of Ireland as an Orange Free State and a provisional government.
See, but I don't, like, I listen to all the rhetoric on the news and all saying that there might be a hard border, a soft border, a big wall, a little wall. You know, regardless of what it might be, Billy, what I can't get my head around is this. If Ireland is still under the Crown, which you claim that they are...
Yeah, but we have a sovereign government that they don't recognise. They've never recognised our sovereign government. And you saw what I told you, what they did on the 21st of January. 1919, they sent in the Crown forces, and if we didn't, and we established our legitimacy and our sovereign Dáil, and they said it didn't sit, and it wasn't there. It sat in various places around Dublin, and it sat down in those tunnels under Vaughan's Hotel, and it sat down in the Mansion House down in the basement. It sat in many places around Dublin. And this thing of denying the facts and denying it and all the lies and deception. The point is we have a sovereign, legitimate, independent government of the 32 counties. And I cannot see how the European Parliament can, if you talk about Lisbon and Maastricht, they claim they have our sovereignty. We had to vote twice. And how can they give the sovereignty of the Sovereign Republic of Eire to Britain or any part of our territory? We have the largest territory in Europe because we go right over to Canada and America and all that seas, and we are still a very important place. But I want to see the benefits of Europe and the benefits of all that going to the people. I mean, to see 8,000 people sleeping on the streets, that is not acceptable. And this people our citizens being evicted out of their houses. I mean, that is scandalous. Those people would turn in their graves. They went out in 1916 and went out on the 21st of January 1919 to fight the War of Independence. Salah Beg with the first shots and to push the British out. And Britain, they won't recognise a democratically elected 32-county government.
I mean, I find it ironic that when you see elections going on around the world, that the British like to call an illegal election and stuff like that, say in Zimbabwe, they're the first to stand up on their soapbox and condemn it. And yet they've done the exact thing to this country after the IRB were democratically elected and given a mandate.
But and we still hold that mandate. That's what I do, as you've seen me on the steps of the Mansion House when we're not even allowed in, and you see them using our tricolour flag, and you see them pretending to use our sovereign seal at Dáil Éireann. And for instance, the people that you might know, the sovereign seal on the tricolour is the Sovereign Republic of Éire, but the sovereign seal on its own is the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann. At 12 strings, it's Anno Domini, well, it's 2017 now, and that's on your passport. It makes everything legal, valid, and a bona fide. It doesn't come from the 6th of December 1921, and it's time they were questioned, and it's time the people stood up and asked those politicians, where are you getting your sovereignty from? Explain yourself. If you ask the right question, you get the right answer. But how can you expect the other 27 countries in Europe to respect our sovereign Dáil Éireann government when our own provisional government won't even recognise us?
They won't even acknowledge that it exists.
They don't. And you'll see in that book, you can read it all yourself in that book, and that's what I always ask people to do it themselves. And you'll see it where the Free State comes from a different source. It says the Crown of England. That's where it comes from. It has nothing to do with us.
But sure, you just have to look at the Free State Constitution, Article 17.
Yeah, but
a note of allegiance to King George V, his heirs and successors.
That's what you're supposed to do, and you're still going on. But yet they won't put their hand in their pocket for anything. They put their hand in their pocket. Where are your taxes going to? Is Leinster House still under the Crown of England? And that's why Sinn Féin wouldn't take their seats in Leinster House, because it was under the Crown of England. And why was it? Why didn't they have it in the Mansion House? They could easily have had it. The first and second Dáil Éireanns were in the Mansion House, and Dáil Éireann was sitting. And it was sitting, all right, it might be in the basement down there, but in the round room where it was. And that was all ratified on the 21st of January by the Sovereign Dáil Éireann government of the Sovereign Republic of Éire by Dáil Éireann in the round room. And nobody, can say otherwise. But it's just, we're not told the truth. And I think there's no doubt about it. I mean, you are not going to go out and use propaganda, lies and deception to the rest of Europe and trying to get them that a 26-county Free State provisional government imposed by King George V can sit in the European Parliament. It just can't do it.
Can I ask you, Billy, in relation to Brexit, what does that mean for Ireland going forward? What do you think the implications of it are?
Look, if you all we want is our sovereign Dáil Éireann government of the 32 counties by the will of all the people of the 32 counties. And you see that sovereign seal that you have. And I've just mentioned about Theresa May when she sent that letter to Tusk. And if you look at that letter and look at the top of it, you see it's under the coat of arms of the Crown of England. And you see England, Scotland and Ireland. And you see our sovereign seal. What is our sovereign seal at Dáil Éireann doing up in their coat of arms? Because they don't have sovereignty, they have royalty. And I'm always saying to people, look at your tax disc, look at your passport, and on your tax disc of your car, they don't put Éire anymore. The name of the state is the Sovereign Republic of Éire. And you put it, but the Free State government cannot use that. And they can't use the tricolour flag. And they can't use the sovereign seal at Dáil Éireann. And you see the sovereign seal without Éire underneath it. That's a Free State, because it's not allowed under the Crown of England. And you just write Éire underneath that on your taxes. And that gives you the right to drive any place in the 32 counties. It gives you the right to drive any place in Great Britain. Because are they going to take down our sovereign seal from 1155 and go out into the world with no sovereignty, just royalty? I think they, it would be an absolute joke. And you can drive any place in the European Union under that sovereign seal. Because as I'm always talking, about the harps and the sovereign seal, the harp is the covenant between God and man with all the information knowledge for his planet Earth and our civilization, whereas the sovereign seal is the psaltery, but it's a Celtic Christianity. It's not Roman. And that gives you all the information for planet Earth and how you understand it, your intellect and your five senses. That's how you under. The wheel, it's on it. Everything is on it. Latitude, longitude, 12 months calendar, every part of it. It's the first computer known to mankind. And you know how man learned to weave his cloth, how man learned the compass, the wheel, everything is on it. And it's time that we were taught that instead of airbrushing it out. And that all we want is that what a wonderful country we would have if we had our sovereign Dáil government and the people getting the benefits of, their taxes and everything else, rather than going to Britain or wherever they're going to. We don't know. You're not told where your taxes are going to, but you're not told about Leinster House. You're not told about where all that tax is going to, and you're not told where it's in. And that I'm only saying that we want our sovereign government. We have a right to that government. And I would also like to talk about, they're talking about, the Good Friday Agreement and all that. The Good Friday Agreement is not, that's ridiculous thing to say. The Good Friday Agreement was about America and Britain removing the Crown forces to fight a war someplace else. That's what it was about. Whereas the peace, reconciliation and prosperity process, that was found below in Willowbank, where I lived, now the University of Limerick. And it was predicated on, because on the 21st of January 1919, Vaughan's Hotel, that's where the Dáil sat, and on the 6th of December 1921, Óglaigh na hÉireann, which is the IRA today, that's where the split happened, and they gave their allegiance to that sovereign Dáil government by the will of all the people of the 32 counties. That's their allegiance to that. They cannot say the war is over until Vaughan's Hotel is restored, and that government is restored, and then you can have a proper peace process, and you can also have you can then have a referendum of the 32 counties to where you want to go or what we want for our people. It's all about the welfare and the right of the sovereign citizens of Éire. That's what it's all about, and that's what the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood do. We don't go to war with anybody, and we don't want to go to war. And we wish our neighbours Britain well, but it's time all that lies and deception and propaganda, and by the might of the Crown forces, that they can go in and destroy a nation, which they did to us on the 21st of January.
They're still out about countries like Syria, Libya. They've done it all around the world. Them and America, they seem to be on the rampage, Billy.
I always ask, where do Americans get their sovereignty from? And as far as they're concerned, they get it from the Crown of England. Where's the Crown of England get it? They get it from us, from the harp.
Goes to show you how important the Irish actually are, Billy. Listen, I need to go to another ad break, Billy, so will you hang on for 2 minutes?
All right.
That'll be great. Folks, be back in 10 minutes with Billy McGuire.
You're listening to Liffey Sound, www.liffeysoundfm.ie. Listen online. Community radio at its best.
Now, folks, you're very welcome back. The text number is 087 7138. Facebook page is called The World You Don't Know Radio Show. You can go on there, like it, share it, spread it about. Anyway, I'm going to go back to Billy. Billy, you're still with me, yeah?
Yes.
That's grand. I don't know what happened there, Billy. I don't know why you got cut off, but you did. But these things happen, Billy, modern technology.
Carry on. But listen, one thing I would like to congratulate Dublin on winning the Sam McGuire. And as you know, the GA was founded by the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood. Yeah. Michael Cusick was fronting for the Irish Republican Brotherhood. In Thurles, and as you know, in Thurles, we go down there. We have our meeting in Hayes' Hotel. But I think it's very sad That's the Sam McGuire and the Lee McCarthy trophies, are Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood trophies, as is the medal. And that's not an All-Ireland medal. It's a GA medal.
Yes, the one they get now, it's not really a nice medal. It's the one with the 3 serpents on it, for anyone that wants to know.
That's not right. I mean, those players think they're getting an All-Ireland medal, and it's not. It's a GA final. They don't have a licence even to. And I think it's very sad. You saw everybody being invited all over the world to Croke Park. And the people who founded the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, who founded Croke Park and used our tricolor flag and used our Sam McGuire and our Lee McCarthy trophies, well, they don't use our medal anymore. Excuse me. We weren't even invited. And I think it's very sad when you get to that stage. And, you know, what a wonderful organisation it was. But it's a corporation now. It's all to do with money.
It is, and they're still not paying the players. I mean, I was only reading there this morning an article about the Dublin manager having to go back to work this morning. He works in the aviation industry. You know, and these are just normal people with normal jobs who volunteer to run these teams.
They all volunteer, but that was the backbone of our independence. And, you know, the Hurleys were known as the Tipperary Rifles. And last year, everybody donated the gold and the silver for those All-Ireland medals. And we gave a magnificent set to Tipperary.
And we were delighted with them too, I believe.
Oh, sure, they're over the moon. And that gold and silver, I don't know whether I can mention Declan, but he made a beautiful job of those medals. And the people were over the moon. And Dublin, we had this set for Dublin as well, but they didn't accept them. I don't know why. Because they don't know. That's not an All-Ireland medal, and that's your proof. I went down to Tipperary.
And it's not. I only gave my nephew John, who I think is listening now. Funny enough, I gave him some bumper stickers as well, Billy McGuire bumper stickers, and he only put one on his car earlier on. And here you are on the radio tonight. He hadn't even a clue you were coming on, so he's quite happy about that. But I actually gave him a poster of the 2 medals side by side. The real All-Ireland medal, the real ornate looking one, the beautiful looking one, compared to the corporate one. The corporate one looks like something you get in the pound shop, and that's just my opinion.
I mean, that is shocking. They did it, and nobody knew, because I went to the counting boards and that, and said, no, that couldn't happen. I went to some, outstanding players that have the All-Ireland medal. No, the GA wouldn't do something like that. Well, they did. And they never told anybody, and they still haven't told anybody.
I wonder how many people know that the grass that's in Croke Park now is English grass.
That's false. And why shouldn't they get the All-Ireland medal? That's your proof. And 1910. And if I went down and asked the Dublin team last year to show me the Sam McGuire, they'd show me the Sam McGuire, which is our cup. And then I would say to them, now show me your All-Ireland medal, because that's your proof. And they will be handing that on to your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. You'll be telling them, oh, I won that. You didn't. It's not an All-Ireland medal. So did you play at all? If it's not legal, valid or bona fides, then you have a big problem. And why should you have a problem? That was an outstanding game yesterday. And hurling was an outstanding game, and it's an outstanding organisation. And you think that they would stand up, and you think that the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood would have been invited there. And to use our tricolour flag there yesterday without our permission, and to use our Sam McGuire without our... I mean, it's the same thing going on in Brexit. Going over to Brussels and lying and deceiving all those other members that you are the government. They call themselves Dáil Éireann. They're not. Dáil Éireann has never sat in Leinster House, and nor could it.
But can I ask you, Billy, do you think the higher-ups in Europe know
They do.
what's actually going on? They know the truth of it?
They do, and they're as corrupt as anybody else because they see all this territory. But I think now we don't want lies or deception. And you look at go down to the forecourts. And I've been complaining there to the Chief Justice there over the years. When the Free State, government at the time elected 3 Free State judges who gave all that money that was outside of America that was collected to set up the Free State. They gave it to themselves. And they're still giving it to themselves. And they changed the sovereign trinity. They have it turned around the wrong way. I mean, no other country would accept that. And why can't they, that last year was our 100th anniversary of our rising, and I asked Enda Kenny and Simon Coveney, who was over the fence, to wash and paint Vaughan's Hotel, and he refused to do it. And that's the only place where the IRA can say the war is over. And you're talking about peace process and that. Sure, that's not a peace process.
But so, when we were growing up, Billy, we were never even thought about the significance of Vaughan's Hotel.
You weren't, and nobody was. And that's the awful thing about it. And I get a lot of stick for even mentioning the fact. But there again, it's so bad. You know, I love Lochgar in County Limerick because our ancestors carried, the harps from the Middle East right across through Europe and right across North Africa, right up through Europe, and came to Hibernia, which is the edge of the known world. And they found Lochgar. And if you go into Lochgar, you'll see the Galties in the background. And they're known as the Clarshics, the harps, coming down the mountain. And they have the biggest stone circle in Ireland, and they have the Clock and Clarshick, the harp stone there, where the harp sits on. And then you have the Rannoch Crandove stone, and they're aligned to Carrigal, which is the other side of the lake, a little hill with two stone circles. And they're aligned back to that stone circle. And I'm always saying, when I lift my left hand, which is the sun ship, the moon ship, and the two fingers and the circle, which is the sun and the planet Earth, and then I do it on my right hand. And I put the two together, and I make the harp. And that's how you understand the harp. Because no man can understand, or woman can understand God, but we can understand the covenant. And as you know, on the Ark of the Covenant, there weren't angels, there were two harps, and they're the harps that you use for all our Celtic designs. And as you know, the Om, which is the first written on that, is the first structured language of mankind, hieroglyphics is the second. And to have all that, and they, in Lochgar, at that stone circle, the OPW had a huge map, and you see Carrigal, which I'm talking about, the two stone circles up there, your two fingers, you could go right back to the Clock and Clarshick. And they took away the map the way people couldn't see it. Isn't that a scandal?
It is. It's a...
I
think it's all part of the big cover-up, though, about our true history.
I want people to know that you can do that yourself, and it was there on the main road, right beside the stone circle, the largest one in Ireland. And that's Lochgar that's where Newgrange, that's Old Grange is Lochgar. And people tell me that who do the measurements, they can do that for 11,000 years. Well, I can do that, and I did it for Europe, and it's in that book. You saw it in that book of Tom McGuire's, a marvellous book to get all.
It's a fantastic book, and I recommend people read that book.
And I would like anybody, what we are talking about. I mean, all we do is give the information to people. And if you go into BillyMcGuire.com, I mean, I'm only that would John, who's the most marvellous secretary, and Christina. And Harry and all those who, Tom Ryan, all those people, and Darren and those, and Tom McGrath, they're only given the information. Isn't that what? Don't you want your children to be sovereign? Don't you want your children to know the facts of what happened in the States and how the sovereign All-Ireland government was denied all that money, and that money ended up creating the 6 counties as an Orange Free State in the provisional government. A free state is what it was. That was never given for a free state.
And it was never the intention of
anybody who donated it.
Yeah.
And you talk about Guinnesses and that. You know, Guinnesses did use that in the harp. They gave money to the Free State government. They didn't give anything to.
And they also gave money to the UVF, didn't they, in Northern Ireland?
They gave it. That's what they did.
Yeah.
And so did Rothschild and that. But they never gave a penny to the sovereign All-Ireland government. And that we were doing it. Without that money, the All-Ireland couldn't keep going. And that's how they took all that money, and those judges, those Free State judges, gave that to the Free State to set up the Free State.
And it's like you said, the self-appointed judges are appointed by the Free State, and they give the money to themselves.
That was under the King.
Yeah, it's criminal.
It's absolutely, and to see that, and to see it going on, and the lies and the deception, and going out to Europe and lying to Europe, you'd be better off to put your hands up. We're not going to be lying. Look at our sovereignty. What we have is unique. And I think it's time people stood up and asked the question, and been lied to all the time, and having crisis after crisis, about money and people and with families and that, I believe they're under terrible pressure. And you're rearing all those children, you're rearing for the state, and don't you want your children to be sovereign, and don't you want your children to know the truth of what happened? And aren't you better off to stand up and go out and say, and be proud of what you have, and be proud of those who went out in 1960.
Well, Billy, listen, I've got about a minute or two left. I just want to get a final word off you. Going forward into the future, what do you think might happen in relation to Brexit? Is going to happen?
We asked everybody to write to Europe and say all we want is our sovereign Ireland government. They can't impose what King George V imposed on the 6th of December 1921, the British apartheid system for the 26 counties of Ireland. They can't give Britain our sovereignty because if you look at Lisbon and Maastricht, they claim that they have our sovereignty. If they do, sure, that splits the whole European Union in two, because everybody will then say, oh, well, if they can give Ireland's sovereignty away to Britain, what will they do with ours, or where will they give it? And you look at Spain, with Gibraltar and that, there's a big problem there. But our own politicians, they have their heads in their sand. They don't want it. They have huge, they're only interested in their pensions, their salaries and their expenses. They don't seem to be interested in our people or what's going on. They're only looking for... We have a sovereign government that has the right, a legal, valid and bona fide right to sit in the European Parliament, and they're going to... And they won't recognise it or acknowledge it. That's the problem. Our own people won't recognise it. How do you expect the other people to do it in Europe? It's time now we stood up, and it's time we grew up, and it's time we started telling the truth about things and being practical and factual about the situation. Yeah.
So listen, Billy, I have unfortunately come to the end of the show. Do you think, though, in the near future, do you think things are going to go a bit haywire in relation to Brexit, or do you think the Brits are going to end up going back into the European Union?
I feel they will, because, look, they're out there on their own. They won't have any sovereignty because they'll have to take down our sovereignty of Ireland, and they won't. We don't wish them any ill luck or anything like that. They're our neighbours, and I know we've had awful times with them and everything else. But look, we're all in it together, and what you want is a sovereign government for your children and to benefit from besides always bust and doom and gloom. We don't want that. We have a sovereign government.
We're a sovereign government, all that will go away in an instant. Billy, listen, thanks very much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, listeners, too, and I'll say good night to you.
And good night to you as well, Billy. Listen, you take care, and I'll talk to you very soon. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that was Billy McGuire, the president of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, talking about Brexit there and the implications that it might have for Ireland going into the future. And why would there be implications? Well, as I've said before on the show, and as Billy has said plenty of times, Britain doesn't have sovereignty. They have to use our sovereignty to stay in the European Union, because as Charles de Gaulle said, the ex-president of France many, many years ago, only sovereign nations are allowed to sit at the table in Europe. Now, if Britain wanted Brexit and Britain still control Ireland via the Oireachtas, what does it mean for us? Interesting times ahead, folks. Anyway, this has been The World You Don't Know. Remember, folks, the world is full of great people. If you can't find one, be one. Talk to us all again soon.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Breaking humanity, one soul at a time. This is The World You Don't Know radio show with your host, Nick O'Connell.